Close, but no cigar. I don't know much, but I know this much. There have been some outgoings at Chelsea FC. Some players have departed. We've offset a few players that didn't quite live up to their name, live up to their expectations. I do think that there's a crop of players that Chelsea have moved on that for some reason it just didn't quite work. They didn't quite cut the grade. We had high expectations for them and it didn't quite work out. And I'm going to bracket these players. This is the second video of a 3-part series revolved around the players that have departed Chelsea. And this is the second video. And this one, I'm going to title this bracket Close But No Cigar. And these players, it's not quite like the first video where I feel like there are a few players that jumped ship, players that definitely were loved by the supporters and players that we wanted to stay and have a longer tenure at Chelsea, but decided to jump ship to other top 6. These players do not quite fall in that bracket for me. These players that I feel like we needed to get rid of, we needed to part ways with, and for some reason it just didn't quite work out. And the first name I'm going to reel off of this list is Mr. Christian Pulisic. Captain America came to Chelsea from Dortmund under the Lampard regime, and I was so excited about Christian Pulisic. What a player. On his day, let's be honest, Pulisic is an absolute baller. He is quality. I feel like he's tenacious, dribbling is sensational, and he's definitely strikes me as a player that loves football, wants to achieve things in the game, and has high ambitions. You could see that when he came in, scored a hat-trick in his first season at Chelsea. He was honestly outstanding. I think we did that business before we got that transfer ban. So Pulisic was able to play in that infamous 2019-2020 season under Frank Lampard, where we couldn't bring any other players in. Pulisic slotted right in, along with the other Cobham graduates, your Mason Mounts, your Reece Jameses, your Tammy Abrahams. Pulisic was on fire. But what has hampered his Chelsea career is injuries. Now, he seems to have been on the medical table more often than not in the past season or so. Even that breakthrough season, I think after he scored that hat-trick, he picked up an injury and we didn't really see him feature for much of that season, and he was out for quite a long time. And that seems to have been the case ever since. Every season, there's a spell on the sidelines for Pulisic. He came on in the Champions League final, almost put the game to bed. But it's a real shame because I've always liked Captain America. I've always thought he had a high ceiling and he could achieve a lot. But it just hasn't quite worked out. And I think definitely since Todd Boehly has come in, and he even sort of fell out of favour with Thomas Tuchel, I found that he kind of just had enough of Chelsea and the ins and outs, the manager changes, not being able to, having to keep proving himself to managers. He definitely sees himself as in the starting 11, and I don't think he ever really cemented that place. Very unlucky with his injuries and also the manager changes. He just couldn't quite cement his place. But Christian Pulisic to AC Milan looks like it's a here we go, looks like it's a done deal. And I feel like AC Milan's a great place for him. And I've always felt that it's kind of like Timo Werner. I know that it hasn't worked out at Chelsea, but I know that there's a player there and he's going to absolutely smash it in another league. And I think Pulisic is going to be an absolute sensation for AC Milan. And I think he will really achieve quite a lot for Milan. He's still so young, still got so much ahead of him, so much games to play. He's, big part of that American team, which is slowly, picking up momentum as well. Sorry to see him go, but his attitude hasn't really been that of a player that was wanted to stay at Chelsea. You could tell he was one of the want-aways last season. I thought under Boehly, maybe there might be something redeemed there. The American connection. I thought Boehly would perhaps convince him to stay and want him a part of the plans. But at the same time, I'm kind of grateful that he hasn't made that a case just, out of a novelty. Hasn't made Pulisic a main feature in our squad next season when he is a man that wants out. But Pulisic, I wish all the best, and I think he's given us some great moments, and I feel like there's a real player on there, and we've yet to see the best from Pulisic. So I think all the best to him. Close but no cigar. Now the next player I want to talk about, this one I would love to speak as highly of this player as I have about Christian Pulisic, but it just it's not quite the same, doesn't feel the same, and that is Hakim Ziyech. Hakim Ziyech, what do we say about this guy? Talent, incredible. absolute wizard. His nickname is Wand of a left foot, but he just hasn't really given me enough games to like feel like I could put him down as a player that I want to heavily feature in this Chelsea squad, especially last season. Another want away. His attitude has absolutely stunk at times last season, and I do get it. Like it's wrong to single him out. So many players were poor last year, but Hakim Ziyech, those cameo appearances off the bench, he just looked like he never wanted to be there like last season. It was really disappointing. And I think he was even subjected to some boos at one point because fans just saw him. He wasn't fighting for the badge. He didn't want to be there. The move to PSG broke down in the January window. And, you know, he even got a few appearances from Frank Lampard, even though we know he did towards the tailgate of last season, even though we knew he didn't want to be there. So it was just weird. And considering he put in such a great shift for Morocco over the World Cup, I was expecting like maybe we're going to get some of that back, but I think, you know, playing for your country and playing for a team that you don't see yourself at are two different things entirely. I don't fault him for that, but it just, again, close but no cigar. We didn't see the best of Hakim Ziyech. We saw glimpses. He had a few really fantastic performances, man of the match performances. Games that come to mind are like semi-finals against Manchester City. I think it was in the FA Cup, or it might have been a quarter-final where he scored. Even early on, his first few seasons, again, another Frank Lampard signing, but I think it's time to call it a day with Hakim Ziyech. Looks like hasn't quite got the cemented, here we go, to Saudi Arabia. That has broken down. There's some underlying knee issues there that haven't been sorted, haven't been resolved, but I think he's been told to arrive, to his return back to Chelsea, to Cobham. Training has been delayed. They're trying to push for a move, and that's a player that I really would like to see the back of in terms of Chelsea. Wish him all the best, but it didn't really quite work out. Such high hopes. But yeah, close but no cigar once again. Another player I want to talk about is Edouard Mendy. Such a shame that hasn't worked out. I mean, at the end of the day, we were absolutely lost for a goalkeeper. We had invested so heavily in Kepa. It didn't work out. He was letting in so many goals. It was a clear area we needed to address. And Petr Cech had headhunted Edouard Mendy from Rennes, and it looked like that was a revelation. He came in, confidence. And one thing that I really, really remarked about Edouard Mendy was set pieces. With Kepa, every corner, every in-swing that came in, you just had your head in your heart, like thinking, is he going to clear this? Is he going to punch it away? Like, what is he going to do? Because there was no confidence whatsoever with Kepa plucking the ball out of the air. He's a short goalkeeper, let's be right. Kepa is not the tallest. And with Edouard Mendy coming in, they were just swatted, punched, caught. Such confidence from set pieces that it finally felt like we weren't going to concede goals and we weren't going to be subjected to, conceding silly goals that we should be dealing with. When Edouard Mendy came in, good shot stopper also, but ultimately not great with the ball at his feet. And that is what ushered the Kepa comeback. Is Chelsea decided to play a lot more. I think the whole Premier League saw it was so pivotal that you can play back to your goalkeeper, and your goalkeeper is going to be able to play passes, triangles, and move on the break. And Edouard Mendy just never really looked confident with the ball at his feet. You know, there were some goals against Real Madrid, last season, the season before last, we sort of gifted the ball away, and Benzema wrapped it up, and that was the home leg. Before that, away leg where we put in such a shift where we were just beaten on away goals, or we were a goal shy. And you looked back at that Edouard Mendy mistake and thought, oh, what could have been if we had just, locked up shot and not conceded so many goals in that first leg. And there were a few moments, I think maybe 3 or 4 in that season, where Edouard Mendy was probably at fault for a lot of for some of those goals. But I don't want to talk too much about, his Edouard Mendy's defects, because at the end of the day, this is a Champions League goalkeeper. This is what kept us in that final in Porto against City. Edouard Mendy made some great saves, confidence, dominance in the air, and I think that we should definitely put respect on Edouard Mendy's name. It hasn't worked out. Kepa has come back and looked like the better keeper last season, but that's not saying much. It's almost like we need a hybrid between Kepa and Mendy. We need, Kepa's ability with the ball at his feet and some of Mendy's shot stopping and dominance in the air. But, that's wishing for the best. But Edouard Mendy is going to go down a legend, I think. And I feel like we should definitely speak nothing but his praises when we talk about his tenure at Chelsea. Close but no cigar, but Edouard Mendy, you're going to go down a legend, and thank you for the service 100%. Next player we got to talk about, Kalidou Koulibaly. Now, Koulibaly has only had a season in, and he's already got a move to Saudi Arabia. What do we say about Koulibaly? We've probably purchased him 3-4 years too late. He leaves Napoli. Napoli go on to win the Serie A. Absolute scenes in Naples that he misses out on. He comes to Chelsea. It all looks good. He scores against Tottenham in like the second game. He looks confident. Then it just sort of tapers off. He looks slow. He looks like he can't quite handle the pace of the Premier League, which is a narrative that a lot of people said. And it's one I'm reiterating. But at the same time, I do feel like towards the end of the season, he did sort of find his feet. He did kind of make amends for that midway point where he did lose his way. He was getting beaten for pace. But, you know, I do think form is temporary, class is permanent, and I do think there is a class defender there, a world-class centre-back, but it just probably isn't the direction we're going. We're actually spoiled for centre-backs at the moment. If you look, we've got Wesley Fofana, Badiashile's come in and been a revelation. Thiago Silva, you know, probably our best player last season before, any season. Hard to dethrone him. And now we've got the likes of Levi Colwill coming in. At the end of the day, Koulibaly is just surplus to requirements. Chalobah also can play there. You know, I did really like a few games where I saw Koulibaly and Chalobah play together when we needed to rest Thiago Silva, when Wesley Fofana wasn't about. And I thought, you know, he redeemed himself. But ultimately, if there's a player, a centre-back that I would have to send on his way, it would have been Koulibaly. And I'm glad that Chelsea have made that decision, even though he's only been there a year. Obviously, we've been very fortunate to get that move away for him to Saudi Arabia. And all the best to Koulibaly. Didn't quite work out. We saw some glimpses. He scored a big goal against Tottenham. He'll go down as a bit of a legend for that. But close but no cigar once again. Guys, what do you think of that bracket? Close but no cigar, I'm calling it. I think, are there any players that you think should fall into that? I've got a third video in this series coming. I'm not going to tell you the title of it just yet, but any players that you feel like should be in this category, let me know. Close but no cigar. The third one is a different angle I'm taking. But yeah, all of these players, if you think I've missed someone, let me know. Leave a comment in the comment box. Like this video if you haven't done so already. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. And I'll see you in the next one in a bit.